I think that's been one of my frustrations is like, when it comes to e-commerce and online and wholesale and things like that, all the different ever changing platforms and increasing costs and all sorts of stuff across the board, it forces us to be the best at selling things online versus being the best at cleaning the ocean. And that's what my goal is to really stay focused on our cleanup operations and try and, hone in on our craft and on our skill and be able to expand and do more technology and pull more pounds. And I would much rather spend my time, frankly, on the ocean cleaning plastic than sitting behind a computer trying to learn the new Facebook algorithm.
Hey, thanks for being here. That's Alex Schulze, co-founder and CEO of 4ocean, an ocean cleanup company dedicated to ending the ocean plastic crisis. And they'll be the first to acknowledge there's a long way to go. As a public benefit corporation and certified B Corp, 4ocean harnesses the power of business to fund a global cleanup operation that's responsible for recovering millions of pounds of plastic and trash from the world's oceans, rivers, and coastlines. Much of that, as you can imagine, is single-use plastic. In fact, they recently reached a whopping 30 million pounds of trash milestone. But if you ask Alex, they're just getting started. Founded in 2017 after a surf trip that featured way more plastic pollution than they'd ever have imagined, 4ocean immediately saw meteoric growth. And that's really unique. But what's also unique is they're doing nonprofit or NGO-type work, but they're actually a purpose-driven for-profit organization who's utilizing the power of their community and brand partnerships to fully employ a team of captains and crew in multiple locations all around the world. We talked about that decision to be structured as a for-profit company rather than a nonprofit here in our conversation. You might have seen one of their viral videos, which often have millions of views, or recognize their ocean blue marketing, maybe their bracelets, or maybe you've seen the founders, Alex and Andrew, on a news show somewhere. But what you might not have known is how meaningful and different the work these guys is doing really is. What I discovered in this fun and winding conversation with Alex is that they are not just selling bracelets. They're not outsourcing the dirty work, and they're not afraid to admit what's working and what's not. I think you're going to really be surprised at how their business model is set up, how passionate and energetic they are, and how committed they are to their team and this work. Alex's energy is infectious, and he knows this business inside and out, but it wasn't always easy. And in fact, it still isn't. So if you are entrepreneurial, maybe you're in leadership or interested in nonprofit work, maybe you're building an international team, or you work for a brand who's looking for an impact-focused partner, you're going to want to tune in to the entirety of our conversation. There are some really good takeaways in here. Alex had so much good advice and so many great stories, but I had a great time talking with him. And as you'll see, I really had a lot of questions. But what I walked away with was a whole new level of appreciation for the work that he and, like I said, his fully employed and fully health insured teams do for our collective commons, our beaches, our oceans, from Florida to Java. 4ocean definitely epitomizes the B Corp mantra, using business as a force for good, and is definitely a place where good things are happening. So thanks again for listening. Here's my conversation with Alex Schulze. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks. Welcome to Good Things Happening, the show that explores the sustainability progress that's being made just under the surface at your favorite brand or company. I'm your host, Derek Sabori, and these are the people making it happen. All right, Alex, welcome to the Good Things Happening podcast show. Man, I'm so stoked to have you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Of course, Derek. I really appreciate you having me, and looking forward to the conversation.
Well, you are a busy guy. I'm overwhelmed with how much stuff you guys are doing. And I'm going to be honest, I think when I first met you, it was at the Surf Expo show last year sometime. You came up to me after a talk I had given, and I saw your booth there. It was big. I've seen the videos. I had heard a little bit about the story, but I did not know the full breadth of the story of all the work you guys are doing. And that's why I'm excited to have this conversation with you, because on that show floor, you grabbed me and we just had this conversation. You again gave me some insights, and I was, it piqued my interest. The more I dove in, though, to prepare for the show, man, there was a lot. So we got a lot to dive into.
Awesome. Yeah, really looking forward to it. And you're right. It was at Surf Expo. You gave an amazing talk, and I was, watching and just learning a lot about the different aspects of sustainability in the corporate world, and how, businesses can be really leveraging their resources to help drive sustainability forward. And I love that quote, right? It depends. And I think that was so relevant, and I really like that. So I think when you were leaving, I had to jump over and grab you and just, I think originally was like, hey, I'd love to talk about if maybe you could come and talk to our employee base and our team, and maybe have some discussions. And you and I got to going, and really stoked to be invited on the podcast. So thanks so much for having me on here.
Well, you bet. And that offer still stands. I'd still love to get in there and talk with the team. So we'll get on a call for that separately. But you guys, 4ocean is an ocean cleanup company dedicated to ending the ocean plastic crisis. And I'm fascinated by the fact, a whole bunch of different things. You're talking about using business as a force for good. You guys are a certified B Corp. You were founded as a social purpose company, and SPC, and you decided not to be a nonprofit. You're in the business of cleaning up trash. I've got all these questions, and you're really involved, people in this mission as well. You bring people on board. Tell me, though, I do want to talk about your business model before we dive into your journey on how you got there. What is the problem you guys set out to solve? How does it all work? How is the company set up? And why are you guys not set up as a nonprofit? Did you think about that in the beginning? So maybe give us an overview of how the company is set up, what you guys do.
Sure. So as you said, 4ocean is an ocean cleanup company that I started with a buddy of mine back in 2017. And our business model, as it started out, was very simple. We wanted to remove plastic from the ocean. We wanted to sell products made from recycled materials, and then have the sales of those products fund our cleanups. It was very comparable to a one-for-one model, like Tom's Shoes and some of these other businesses that have been very successful and had such a huge impact. And that's how we started. So we started out with just our bracelet. And what I tell a lot of people is that the bracelet was our stepping stone to the bigger picture, right? We kind of view it as a Kickstarter campaign. And what that did, it enabled us to build a global cleanup network, right? Today we employ over 250 captains and crews, and these are full-time salaried employees that we provide health benefits, insurance, everything to really expand our cleanup operations. And we started out by selling a product, and now we're starting to innovate and implement new business solutions to try and fund additional cleanups. So we started out with the product and product sales, selling, for every product sold, we'd remove a pound of trash from the ocean. We're moving into the plastic offset market, where we're working with brands to neutralize their footprint by funding the cleanups of additional plastic removed from the ocean. And then we're also having conversations down the road of how we could potentially also commoditize the plastic that we're collecting and sell that to brands that they can use recycled ocean plastic instead of virgin plastic in their products, and drive the conversation forward in regards to sustainability. So to your question on the for-profit versus nonprofit, it's a great question that we were looking at when we started the business. And, frankly, I had always really looked up to a lot of aspirational brands. I've looked at brands like Yeti. I've loved Yeti as a brand, Nike, some of these brands, Patagonia and Tom's, like these brands have been able to create global movements as a business, right? As a social enterprise, to be able to not only have a lot of impact, but be able to create full-time jobs and build a sustainable model that lasts for years and years. And I think that's something that I really aspire to want to create, me and my buddy. And so what we did is, you look at some of the things about Yeti and Nike and some of these brands, Tom's, Patagonia. Tom's was able to really have a huge impact by offering their one-for-one model and kind of creating that. And Patagonia being able to disrupt the supply chain, offering more sustainable materials and just challenging how things were done. I just like that. And I like the idea of being able to develop a movement. And, there were a lot of limitations with nonprofits. For us, the operating internationally, the red tape involved of transferring funds and handling things all around the world, and being able to really grow a movement. Historically, I've just kind of watched the nonprofit industries do things a little differently than like lifestyle brands. Lifestyle brands have been able to leverage social media and these platforms, and leverage athletes, celebrities, and all these role models to drive a message forward. And I think that was something that we really wanted to do with 4ocean, is to be able to connect and build that movement to get more people involved in sustainability, and just at the end of the day, keeping the ocean clean. right? And so that's something what we did. We really looked into on what we could do to drive a movement forward around the world and be able to grow the business and fund our cleanups sustainably in a way that could live on long after we're gone.
Awesome. And I can appreciate that as well, because that's my angle. I believe that the power of brands, these powerful brands, are really where the change is going to come from. People are drawn to brands. They want to work for great brands. They influence our lives. So I do agree with that 100%. You guys, I mean, you're in Boca Raton right now. You're dialing in from sunny Boca Raton, it looks like. We've got palm trees in the back. I know it started humbly. You mentioned just you and your buddy. It sounds like it was right after college. Tell us a little bit about that journey. What's funny is I look at your degree of entrepreneurial and small business operations. Not everybody kind of gets a degree and goes right into doing what they studied. It almost looks like you did. Tell us a little bit about that early founding story.
Sure. So I grew up on the west coast of Florida on a small island, and I spent almost all my time on or in the water. I'm a licensed captain. I grew up just literally living on boats, surfing in the ocean, doing everything I did was always revolving around the ocean. So a lot of my family went to Florida State University, and I didn't really want to be landlocked. So I went to Florida Atlantic University, we're actually right on the campus. That's FAU right behind me. So our office is located on the campus. And, I heard like, oh, it's a mile from the ocean and you can see the ocean from like the football stadium. I was like, yep. That works. That tracks. Yeah. So I'll do that. And I was able to come over here and bring my little boat and spend my time on the ocean. And, I've always been entrepreneurial. So I've always had, businesses, whether that was doing boat detailing. When I was 6 years old, selling lemonade on the corner of the beach. Like I've always had a entrepreneurial background and a drive to want to start a business. And after graduating college, I knew I wanted to start a business around what I was passionate about. And that's something that, I was able to meet my co-founder, Andrew, in college. We had some similar classes and ended up getting connected with a big group of people that were, going on surf trips to Central America. And we were doing all these different activities around the ocean. And when we graduated graduated FAU, we wanted to find a way to fund the cleanup of plastic. And it all started on a trip to Bali. Bali is these pristine beaches, number one surf destination in the world. Everyone loves going to Bali. And we saw something different, right? And we saw a crazy amount of plastic that's on the shorelines there. And that was something that really blew us away because, there's a place right when you land in Denpasar, a little place called Kuta, and there's a beach break there. And it was loaded with plastic, like absolutely loaded. I mean, to the point where kids were swimming in between like mounds of plastic sachets, water bags, and all sorts of stuff. It's like right in front of the Hard Rock Hotel. It kind of comes into like a cove there. Wow. And the plastic accumulates due to the onshore winds. And that was something that just blew us away. And we wanted to find a way that we could fund the cleanup of this plastic. So that's where we came up with the idea that if we could pay fishermen to clean and collect plastic instead of catching fish, then we could kind of create a business model that would help fund the additional expansion of our cleanup efforts and really just grow the cleanups all around the world. And that was something, like I said, we looked up to brands like Tom's and Patagonia and leveraging business for a force for good. And that's what started it all.
So what's really fascinating though, is a lot of us, as a surfer myself, you stuff plastic in your wetsuit, you pick up a few items on the way back to your car. It never dawned on me to make a business of that. And you do beach cleanups, you participate in beach cleanups with Surfrider Foundation or other local nonprofits. But the idea of making a business out of it and sort of being, in a way, like you're the world's trash man in a way, right? The ocean's trash man. And what a noble position. And I watched the videos and actually I want to talk about, I want to ask, to what do you attribute your success and the growth of the organization? Sure. Because it's just been so big. You guys leverage the power of social media in a big way. Yeah. But did you ever imagine, sort of that idea of seeing that trash could you imagine it becoming what it is today? No. How did you get from, A to B? Was it just kind of slow incremental? At what point did the light bulb go off and go, bro, we've got a business here, like a business. Yeah. No, I never would have thought that we had gotten to this point. I mean, we're coming up on 30 million pounds of trash from the ocean. Like, it's amazing.
It's incredible. I'm so fired up, so stoked. Our captains and crews work so hard, and everybody's doing such an amazing job to drive our cleanups forward. And no, I never thought back when we started this that we'd be this large. And I think attributing a lot of it is, you're right. Social media has been a huge driver of our success. Being able to, going back to that comment as far as building a movement, that was one thing that we were very, very focused on, is trying to get as many people involved that we can, that share a collective vision for clean oceans, right? We want as many people that respect the ocean. And that's one of the things that I love about 4ocean is, like, it doesn't matter where you're from, your demographic, your background, your interests. Everybody agrees that we shouldn't have dirty beaches and dirty oceans, right? We shouldn't have plastic choking the ocean. So that's something that is so great about the business, is we've been able to try and grow this movement and grow the awareness around the world for what's happening to the oceans in terms of plastic. Because a lot of people don't know, a lot of people hear the news articles of what went viral about 8-10 years ago of the floating islands of trash the size of Texas. I don't, wherever you are, people always reference that. Hey, you guys going after those big islands out there the size of Texas? And then, once you get into the details to understand that it's not actually an island, the word island was a little bit misleading because people think they can use excavators and big equipment, machinery, and just go grab it and be done.
Scoop
but
it
in
up.
reality, it's microplastic and smog, and it's spread over a large area. And I think that's something, when you think about the awareness, we've been trying to drive that awareness. And social media was something that really, really helped us to drive that explosive start. Really, like, we grew so quickly. I mean, we went from just myself and my buddy Andrew to over 350 employees in a matter of like 2.5 years. It was chaos. Like,
wow.
It was gotten a tiger by the tail. Right. And it's been an incredible journey, but I think social media has been one of the main things that's really helped us to grow our network and grow the awareness around the business and the brand.
Well, let's talk about that, because I want to see if you can pinpoint, I'm sure you can, at what moment it was, because at this point, I looked at your YouTube channel, 104,000, TikTok, 3.7 million, Instagram, 2.3 million, Facebook, 1.3 million. Those are huge numbers. And honestly, what's funny is I only checked those last night, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like Alex is a star. I mean, you're obviously
that. Yeah.
You're the CEO of a company, and it's, the company is growing. So of course I recognize that, but those are huge numbers. What was the first moment? Congratulations, by the way. Congratulations on the 30 million. And thank you. And thank you for the work you guys do. It's weird because it is like it's a social calling. It's almost like you're addressing a social need. That's why it's so fascinating. There is one thing about, there's a difference, I think, between using business as a force for good and donating some and doing the right thing. You guys are actively doing work on behalf of society.
Yes.
I think that's different, and that's interesting. But I want to go back. Can you, what was the first video though? What was the first piece of social media when it's just like that went viral or that got you to these numbers? Because those are very, very hard numbers to achieve. That's what people dream of. Sure.
No, we are blessed. We're fortunate enough to have such a large following, and we've worked hard. Like I make no mistake, we've worked very, very hard to grow our followings and grow our platforms. But there's also some luck involved. And I think that for us, I think the first things that really took off, marketing as a whole has just evolved and gone through so many different evolutions over the past 7-8 years of myself being really involved in it. And it's always something else, right? It's whether it's Snapchat, then it's TikTok, then it's Facebook. It's always changing and adjusting. But back when we first started, there's a lot of Facebook pages that ended up featuring us. So we had like Now This and Business Insider and Cheddar and all those kind of publications that what ended up happening was we spent a lot of time trying to just, I had to learn everything. Like when we first started, we had no idea what we were doing. Like no clue. I had to literally learn how to video edit, to take photos, to try and connect the cleanups to when it comes to the business, not only just getting the message out, but I mean literally sourcing products, finding out how to make a recyclable bracelet, and doing all the different steps it takes to start a business. But for us, once we started learning that, it was learning the video editing, putting together videos, trying to craft a message to get our message out there of hey, this is who we are, this is what we represent, this is what we're trying to do. And a couple of those videos just took off. And man, oh man, was it crazy. We literally went, Derek, it was so wild. We went from just my buddy and I, we started out in a small coffee shop just above Brooklyn Water Bagel over here, in right down the street from FAU. And it took off so quickly that we were literally doing everything: customer service, packing orders, doing the marketing, doing the management, everything. It went nuts. And so we had, in a matter of like 3 weeks, we went to the FAU job fair, and we literally went out there. And if you had a pulse, you got a job. It was just like, oh my gosh, we're so backed up on orders. We've got to pull a ton of trash out of the ocean. Like, hey, just come on board. We'll figure it out. And it was like, it was a cluster. I can tell you that. We had a ton of young kids at this office. Some of them are showing up in pajamas and bunny slippers and stuff. And we're trying to get the business going. It was hilarious, but we got it started, and we've got some of those people with us still to this day, and it's incredible. And so that's what really took off and enabled us to scale. And then we started really investing in the different platforms, growing our cleanup operations. We bought our first boat and vessel and hired our first captain, then hired our second and third. And it was just like, man, it was crazy. It was awesome to see the momentum, and just so many people loved kind of what we're putting out there, right? What we represent. We're trying to develop a business that can clean the ocean and that we can sell products to fund that mission.
Because basically you were telling people, you're saying, hey, buy this product, and for every time you do, we'll go clean up trash for you, right?
That's correct.
And the orders you were flooded with orders. People wanted those bracelets. They loved your videos. They loved your personalities, your story, whatever it was. And so you're like, oh man, we've got some trash to clean up.
That was it. Right? We've got some serious trash to clean up. We've got to scale quickly. And that's what led us to really expand our cleanup operations and grow here in South Florida. And then we started opening up new international locations around the world. And it grew very, very quickly.
So let's talk about that progress, because I do think, man, you could have easily just kind of gone down the path of like, you know what, this bracelet thing is really good. We're making good products. Let's add more to our products. We'll sort of tone it down, or maybe it's not a 1-for-1. But you guys, you went all in, and now essentially you are a cleanup company. It seems like that happens to sell products as opposed to the other way around.
Correct.
And you've had to, I'm sure, learn that as well, because when I go in all your videos, from the new technology, whether it's the drones, those cleanup, drones, the robots, there's so much cool stuff. But I mean, you guys are essentially becoming a technology company, a solutions provider. This is big work. You're not just kind of combing the beaches. You're going out to the deep sea. You've got the booms. Yes. So for those watching or listening, if you're not familiar with all the work that these guys are doing, go check out the website. We'll put the links in there, because it's impressive. It's impressive. And I want to know a little bit. Yeah, you bet. I want to know, what did it take to learn that side? Because I'm sure you were scooping trash from the beach at first. You're like, oh, this is easy. I'm sure very quickly you're like, ooh, this is and especially now globally. So working with captains, employing them. Tell us about building that out, learning the ins and outs of that, and what that journey has been like, and what have you learned most from that?
Sure. So, like I said, I grew up on the water. Licensed captain. My co-founder Andrew, he's a licensed captain as well. We've spent all our time on the ocean. So a lot of what we were doing, a lot of our skill set did transfer in terms of, okay, we got to hire captains. We've got to, get our vessel set up. We've got to really develop the infrastructure. So that wasn't too hard. And I originally actually came over to FAU to get a degree in ocean engineering. So I was going for ocean engineering for a couple of years. I have a very much kind of a maker mentality. I love building, tinkering, kind of just building prototypes and doing stuff like that. And I've always spent my entire life kind of trying to learn new things. And so for me, that was a big aspect of the cleanup operations. Was like, we started out very easy, like you're saying, just picking up plastic. And then now we're starting to evolve and get into these more, I guess, intense forms of cleanups, right? We're expanding, and really comes down to paying and employing captains and crews. That's like our main focus, is how do we create as many jobs and employ as many people to remove plastic directly from the ocean. So we started locally, and I didn't have a ton of experience managing people, and frankly, I'm not the best at it. I got to be candid with you. I try and stay focused on the things that I can add the most value, and we've expanded our cleanup operations, hired more captains and crew. Once we started going internationally, there was a whole nother level of challenges. I mean, we got to the point where when we were going to these different international areas, and I mean literally like backpacks on our back, just catching a plane ticket and just going to have some conversations. Like, we're just going to go do some exploring, right? And for a long time, it was hard to convince people of what we were doing, because they're always like, what's the catch? We're like, hey, we're a business. We're trying to hire people. Like, do you know anybody that's interested in potentially helping us set up a cleanup infrastructure? I mean, it was literally boots on the ground, just like walking around, knocking on doors. And for the most part, a lot of the people are like, what's the catch? I'm struggling to understand what this really involved. You've got a foreigner coming in saying you're going to pay me to clean up trash. Like, I don't get it. I don't believe it. Like,
doesn't make sense.
Once we explained and finally, showed the videos and explained like, hey, no, we're serious. And then, a lot of people have mentioned too, they're like, yeah, listen, unfortunately, we've had a lot of NGOs and nonprofits come in and make a lot of promises. And they come in what they call the flash in the pan. Like they'll come in, they'll do this huge thing, they'll do a big campaign, and then they're gone. And then here we are kind of left, struck. So that was a big frustration with a lot of these different areas that we've gone to. And we said, no, we want to employ you full time. This is like a job. This is a full-time job. It's not just for a week. It's not for one big cleanup for a day. We want to employ you full time to clean plastic out of the ocean. And that's when it started gaining a lot of traction internationally, is after we started, like, we kind of put our money where our mouth is, right? We said, okay, we're going to pay you. We mean it. We're going to pay you consistently, salaried. We're going to cover health insurance, benefits, the whole nine. We want to do this. And that's how we gained some momentum internationally, which has been incredible.
And that is also very unique, because you could have easily, most businesses, you build out your supply chain, but everybody owns different parts and you partner with them and you rely on them to take care of the workers. You're building a vertical supply chain globally. Yes. And you're doing it in 12 different locations, 185 crew members, 17 vessels. Maybe those numbers have changed. That's what was on your website.
Yep. We're a little over, just about 200. Yeah. But yeah, very close.
And what countries are you guys in at this point? So where do you have employees and captains at this point?
So we're in Florida, here in Florida, Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale. We're in Guatemala, and we have 3 satellite locations over there, Quetzalito, San Francisco del Mar, and Puerto Barrios. And then in Bali and Java, Indonesia. So Bali, we've got like 5 locations, Denpasar, Medupi, Jembrana, Java, and then we're looking at a couple more that we're expanding as well.
So you've built a global organization, a global footprint with employees now at this point all over the world. Yes. And what I love about watching your videos as well, which I think is the draw. You're so passionate, you're so charismatic. There is clearly, which I'm also struggling with understanding, not struggling, but just I'm fascinated by the joy it seems in this cleanup. This is hard, dirty work. So I do want to talk about, I want to talk about the cleanup. Where is all the plastic going? What are you finding on the beaches and in the oceans, et cetera? But how are you keeping the team so excited and passionate about picking stuff up day by day? You go out there, you do it too. Everybody's like, no, we're in the business of cleaning up. Let's go, put the gloves on. Yes. What's the catch? What's the trick? What's the formula?
Man, I got to tell you, I think we've, it's always been a vision of mine to create a great environment for our team. Our team works incredibly hard. We would not be anywhere near where we are today if it wasn't for the team that we have in place. And especially with, what you were just talking about, the vertically integrated type of approach, that's something that nobody's doing. We noticed that there's almost no one out there. And there's brands, right? There's brands in the surf industry. There's other brands that are doing these different projects where, everybody is in an ocean cleanup type of space, but there's very few different companies, nonprofits, or groups that are doing the work themselves and being vertically integrated. A lot of people will say they'll sell a product and say, for everyone sold, we're going to help clean the ocean, but then they're donating to various different groups, right? So it's more of a broker type model where they're distributing the funds. Whereas like, hey, we're incurring those expenses every single month. Everything, facilities, insurance, benefits, salaries. It is a nonstop, expense that we're incurring. And that's because we wanted to really be able to build the environment for our employees. And I think the question that you asked in regards to how do we create such an amazing environment, me personally, I'm like fired up. Like I can tell you right now, this is like the dream job. I'm able to be on the water, doing what I love, building a business that we're able to employ hundreds, if not thousands of people, hopefully, in the future to remove plastic out of the ocean and truly, I believe, having a big impact. 30 million, when you see the grand number, is like, oh, it's a drop in the ocean. But you know what? I view it as a much bigger approach of what we need to do to try and drive the awareness around the issue. And I think that the passion that I bring for that, people get excited about it, right? And that's how we kind of get them on the mission. But once you get out there and people are doing the cleanups, having a blast, being able to spend time around what they love, I just think that it's the ocean by itself is infectious, right? And so many people have such a great time being out in the environment, helping to clean up the trash. And you're right, it is dirty. It is gnarly. It is hot, sweaty. You're working in the sun. You're breaking your back. And And we do it in a way that we have a lot of fun. And that's what we're trying to do. You know, one of the things I say a lot, Derek, is we're trying to make sustainability cool. Right. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to build a lifestyle brand, is to build a movement where people aspire and look up to different groups or people that are doing things, in my opinion, the right way. And, you know, sustainability as a whole used to be the gnarly person that didn't shower, didn't shave, and like, you know, but it's not like the crunchy aspect anymore. Nowadays, what we need to do is we need to make sustainability mainstream, in my opinion. We need to leverage athletes, celebrities, and influencers that, hey, bring in that reusable bottle, bringing your reusable cutlery set, you know, making those decisions with your dollar is actually the right thing to do. It's cool, right? It's not only good for you, it's good for the planet. And I think that's something that's super important across the board, is just to create that very passion-fueled environment. And I find that's what people get so excited about. You know, we get people on board, but once we take them out in the ocean, they're just like, man, this is like a whole different ballgame.
Well, you're doing good things and people are drawn to good things, right? People are drawn to good people doing good things. And it seems like that's what's happening. So I love those.
Yes.
Your videos are infectious. Let's talk about the plastic then. What are you seeing out there? What is the problem? You know, obviously there is, as you said, 30 million pounds seems like so much, but it is a drop in the bucket. So I know there are all these different angles that we can attack this in terms of, does it even matter? Should we be addressing plastic use somewhere else? Should we rely on somebody to clean it up for us? All of that. It's a complicated, I think, sort of situation, but it's driving awareness. But what are you finding physically? What are the limitations, the challenges of physically dealing? You've got these super sacks, what you call them, right?
Oh, yeah.
These huge bags that you fill up. And I mean, depending on what video you watch, right? You guys are cleaning up either tires that have been abandoned in the ocean, or disposable, single-use plastic forks in the masses, which is crazy.
Yes.
So of all the different things you're finding, give us a little walkthrough of what you find, what you do with it. What does that process look like? What does a full day or a week of beach cleanups look like in a specific region? Sure.
So we're finding all sorts of materials out in the ocean, but primarily we're finding single-use plastics. We're finding the plastics that are used for a few minutes and then discarded. So think about the water bottles, the cutlery, the straws, the sachets, water bags, and then you have the other materials that you find sometimes, like luggage and shoes and all sorts of other stuff, clothing, you know, a bunch of things like that. But what we're finding is that a lot of this material, a lot of this plastic is found in areas that lack a necessary waste management infrastructure. And when a lot of people ask us, like, how do you determine where you're going to clean up plastic? We're trying to go to the most impactful areas. And it's kind of a formula that we've really kind of analyzed. And when you have these different components, so if you have a developing country that has a lack of waste management infrastructure, has some form of elevation, and then has a rainy season, almost every single time you're going to find huge amounts of plastic on the coastlines and in the ocean. And what's happening is that this plastic is being consumed in these developing countries. They don't have a lot of options. And it's not really the locals' fault for not having options. I mean, they would love to be able to drink purified water out of a filtration system, but unfortunately, all they have available are these little tiny packs of water, and that's all they can afford. So they're consuming all this plastic, but they don't have anywhere to put it. So they're tossing it into the streets, into the gutters, into the streams, and then during the torrential rains, that's bringing all that plastic to the rivers, and the rivers are bringing it to the ocean. And it's estimated, I think, that it's about 80% of the plastic that enters the ocean is coming from land-based sources. So that's all this plastic that we're finding. And what happens is the plastic ends up entering the ocean through the river, and then onshore winds are pushing it onto these different coastlines. And that's why you're seeing some of our imagery of like just football fields of plastic on the coastlines. It's just so heavy. And so that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're collecting. So a typical cleanup operation for our captains and crews is heading out to these different areas, collecting plastic from the ocean as well as the coastlines in these areas. So we're not doing as much deep sea collection. You know, the amount of fuel and the carbon footprint that we'd incur to go way offshore to track some of these things down, it's more efficient and better for the environment to try and stop it at the source, right? So we're operating out of these high impact areas on the coastlines by the river mouths and really just pulling the plastic off the coastlines and in these areas.
I love that you're carbon aware in that way, right? It's like, well, it may not even make sense, to head out there. What do you do with it then? So I know you've got to sort it. And so you're stockpiling all of this. Is there a market for all of this? I know you talked about trying to become a supply chain partner and be a provider, make it a commodity item. So where are you at in that realm? You have, I'm sure, warehouses all over storing all these different grades of plastic. Is all of this plastic even recyclable? Can it be used? Is it beyond use, or what are you seeing?
It depends, right?
Yes, good.
Yes. So that's something that a lot of people ask. And so our number one priority is recycling. We want to do everything we can to process these materials in the most sustainable way possible. I will be very transparent that at times in certain countries, there's a lack of waste management infrastructure or recycling capabilities. So we actually are stockpiling a ton of this material. So what we're doing right now is the plastic is cleaned up by our captains and crews. It's brought back to our facility. After that, it's sorted by type, color, and condition and prepared for future recycling. So what we'll do is we'll put it into bales. And what a bale is it's a machine that compresses plastic into small cubes to make it more efficient for storage and transport. And then we're storing that plastic until we can get enough plastic to reach a recycler's minimum order quantity, their MOQs that they require, to then process that plastic into a flake, pellet, and then a feedstock that can be used by manufacturers to make new products. So, majority of the plastic is being sorted and baled, and we still have a ton of our plastic. We haven't got involved in the material space just because the supply chain industry and just the logistics have been so expensive that we're actually sitting on a very large amount of plastic that we're waiting to process. And what we're hoping to do is be able to implement a recycling infrastructure and process that into various different outlets. So the best case would be to leverage the plastic to manufacture products, nowhere near a single-use application, but products that could drive awareness to the ocean plastic crisis. So think of sunglasses, coolers, shoes, different consumer goods that people will talk about, because I really do believe in that word of mouth aspect of marketing. With our bracelet made from our plastic, that's something that they love to talk to their friends and say, no, you don't understand. Like, this is actually plastic that the captain's cleaned up. And it just triggers that conversation across the board. So that's the number one outlet, is to really be able to leverage that, to use materials in a way that people can understand and talk about the ocean plastic crisis. I'd say on par with that is also leveraging the plastic to be able to be made into different building materials. So plastic can actually be made into bricks utilizing heat and compression. So you can build bricks, beams, and boards and actually make houses and pergolas and decks and all sorts of stuff. You might think like Trex lumber or some of that composite lumber, something along the lines of that. Because I love the application. It's designed to last forever. And then, there are plastics that are unrecyclable. And this is something that's very tough that we're constantly working on. And everyone's always asking us exactly what we're doing with the waste plastics. And unfortunately, at some locations, landfill is our only option. Now, mind you, we move it to landfills that are nowhere near the ocean, that don't have a chance of spilling over during a rain and going back into the ocean. But we're constantly looking for new outlets and new ways to process the material. And each year you're seeing these crazy innovative solutions come out that are being packed in shipping containers. And, we're hoping to really be able to implement some of these things in the future. And that's what we're doing with a lot of our plastic is also storing it. We have it right now because we know that very soon we're going to have the funds, the capital, and the ability to process it into new materials.
So again, you guys are doing a public service. You're building out a supply chain. You're making it easy you're basically setting up to say, hey, when you guys are ready, when somebody's ready to take this, we've sorted it, it's ready to go, it's graded. Like, you've built the supply. Now we just need the demand there for somebody to come and take it. So really fascinating, and to know that there's whatever millions of pounds kind of ready to go to be built into new products, and hopefully but also what kind of a creative business strategy as well. You're like, you're getting it from all different angles here, right?
Sure.
Sell the product, create awareness, do the cleanup, provide the social benefit, but also now we've got a commodity that we own, and we can. It's like, man, nice work.
I do want to clarify, because I think on that side it sounds so picturesque and perfect from a business model perspective, because it's like, man, this thing can be very successful. Yeah. But unfortunately, the reality of processing the materials, because we are pulling plastic directly from the ocean, due to UV degradation, contamination, there's a lot of things that go into it. It is very, very expensive to take that material and take it from raw plastic form and then hot wash, flake, pelletize, and then add all the necessary additives to it to get it back to the necessary form so that manufacturers can take it, right? There's a lot of science that goes behind it with the melt flow index and all the different temperatures that to melt this plastic, that it's very expensive. And actually, that's one of the reasons why we're still stockpiling, is because the costs incurred to recycle. That's one of the reasons why there's such a big issue in the world right now with plastic, is because it's cheaper to use virgin plastic than it is to use recycled. So it's actually way more expensive for us to process this into an end product. And that's where we would need a brand partner that can help cover those costs to be able to use that material. And our hope is to drive the awareness aspect of it and be able to drive that business model forward through just people talking about ocean plastic and 4ocean and cleaning and captains and crews cleaning. That's the hope.
Well, and you also, really interesting, it gets so complicated because you did mention, additives. And once that stuff the plastic starts to get processed, Greenpeace just did a big report on sort of the toxicity that's associated with plastic at every stage, manufacturing, recycling, like every part, right? It's just, there are chemicals in there that are toxic. And so, yeah, it is not good. It's very complicated. Yeah. In some cases, who knows? This is not me proposing this, but it might just be better just to landfill and say, make this stuff go away forever because it's just not worth it. Don't know. It goes back to that idea of it depends.
It depends. Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, because a lot of people, there's a lot of brands that are very proud of a no landfill policy. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, some of these different outlets, it's very much in a depends category, because there's incineration, there's landfill, there's co-processing. There's so many options for this plastic that I think we all agree the best thing to do would be to just try and limit and reduce the amount of single-use plastics that we're consuming and move into a more reuse and circular economy. That's like the best thing we can do. But also, I'd like to address the fact that like plastic as a material, as a design, has an incredible applications. Like it as a material, it's designed, it's a great material, right? It's built to last forever. It's lightweight. It's shockproof. It's rot resistant, resistant to bugs and things like that. It's the applications that are terrible, right? So plastic by design in some of these applications, like a back deck, if you build a back deck out of plastic, that wood lumber that you're continuously rebuilding, every few years, that deck can last 30 years and then it can be recycled into something new. But when you look at single-use plastic that's designed to be used for 30 seconds, sachet, water bag, water bottle, and then be tossed, that's the application that just doesn't make sense. So if we can get rid of the waste plastics and find more sustainable outlets, I think that's going to be the best route forward.
So true. It's I love it. And I think that is exactly right. Just, putting it to use in the right way and using it responsibly. The Ellen MacArthur Foundation had this great resource that they put out that was called The New Plastics Economy. And it's this idea of, just saying there are times when we need plastic. We're not going to eliminate it 100%. It's just a matter of using it when it's needed and avoiding it when it's not, so that we don't end up having to, I guess the goal would be, how do we put you out of business, right? How do we make it so that you've got to find something else to do?
Exactly. We say that it's the best thing that can happen is if we got to move on and focus on something else because the ocean's clean. I think everybody would be incredibly stoked.
Alex, one thing, with all of this trash that's been cleaned up, this 30 million pounds, which is amazing, but how do you measure it? How do you know? I saw some of the videos where, you document it, you take photos. On your website, you're talking a lot about third-party verification, though. You've built in trust to let people know that, hey, it's not just you saying this. You've got a third-party verifier. Talk to us about that. Tell me about that.
Sure. So when we started the business, we knew that we had to be incredibly transparent with how we're collecting the plastic and how we're documenting that. So we have a system that we're calling our trash tracker documentation. And what happens is in every cleanup location, we've got our cleanup crews that we take photos of the crew that's going to be going out and cleaning. We take photos before, during, and after the cleanup of where they're collecting this plastic. And then all that plastic is brought back to our facility where it's then weighed on our scales. Each super sack is then photographed with the necessary weight, and all of that information is then uploaded into our trash tracker. And the idea behind this is to be able to prove that the plastic we are collecting is coming from the coastlines. Our crews are out there, all the behind the scenes of what it takes to collect this plastic, and then uploading that to our trash tracker. Now that's audited and verified by Green Circle certification as well as the Better Business Bureau. And we're actually leaning in and getting more certifications. We're doing a little bit of research to potentially put it on blockchain, but it depends on the sustainability behind that. So we're doing a little bit more research, but we're constantly leaning into how can we be more transparent with our cleanups and show the amount of plastic that's being removed to our customers and to our partners.
Awesome. Is that trash tracker, is it public facing?
It's not public facing yet. We're still developing the app and trying to get it to the point where it can be public facing. And that's something that we're working on right now.
Well, Alex, tell me a little bit about the progress you've made. What are the things that you're most excited about right now? I mean, there's tons of, you guys have so many videos. The website is packed with a whole bunch of information and initiatives. You've got the Corona partnership. You've got the different reef cleanups, the plastic offset program. Are there any of those that you're most excited about, or that you kind of say, hey, to me, this has been we've made progress in the biggest way right here in this space?
Sure.
What are you excited about?
I would have to say, it's our partnerships program as well as our plastic offsets program. And, plastic offsets, for anybody that's unfamiliar, it's comparable to carbon offsets, where we work with brands and calculate the amount of plastic that they're producing in their products and remove an equivalent amount of plastic directly from the ocean, accomplishing plastic neutrality. Now, to be very clear, this is not the silver bullet. This is not a get out of jail free card. This is something that brands come to us and say, listen, we're trying to transition plastic out of our packaging. We're trying to do the right thing, but we know we've got a few years and it's taking time and material innovation, and we're working through that. But in the meantime, we want to take responsibility for the plastic that we're putting out into the environment. I love this so much, Derek, because it's connecting our cleanups directly to our captains and crews. The one thing about a product business, which is it's just great, but what we've experienced a lot in the past few years is, you've seen increases in shipping and logistic costs. You've seen increases in marketing costs across the board on these platforms. You've seen all these different, costs that are increasing, making it difficult for, our products are only $20, $24. Like it's not a massive product, and it's very tough to build a model with such a low price point. And I will tell you that I love the idea of these partnerships because we're able to connect a huge impact directly to our captains and crews and scale our cleanups at a very, very drastic rate, right? We don't have to produce and manufacture a ton of products. We don't have to ship things around the world. We're not dealing with all these different platforms that we have to pay a percentage of the sales to in order to have a sustainable model. We're able to just essentially work with the brands, develop a partnership, and boom, go expand our cleanups and be able to scale our impact all around the world. And I think what it is it's helping us to diversify a little bit, right? Because I think we want to build that sustainable model so that we can fund our captains and crews, because we were impacted by COVID and it was a very tough time for the business. And I think that's something that we're trying to really diversify so that we can have a well-rounded foundation of the funds that we're driving to our cleanup operations. So the partnership program, we've partnered with Corona. We've partnered with some very large brands that are doing some amazing things. And we're excited to drive that forward and be able to fund more and more captains and crews to clean more plastic out of the ocean.
So are you constantly, how do brands hit you up? If they're like, oh, that sounds good, I want to partner with you. Do they just hit you up through the website? Where do they find you? Yeah.
If they go to the website, we've got a partnership page. They can go and learn more. They can see our partners there. I mean, we've partnered with US Polo, Good Pop, Garmin, Sea-Doo, Corona, Barbie. I mean, we've got some great partnerships and some people that really do care about helping to drive our cleanups forward. So if they want to learn more, they can go to our site. Take a look at some examples. We've got a few different options for partnerships, but that's how they can partner with us, and we can expand our cleanups and pull more pounds of plastic out of the ocean.
Love it. What are and also the plastic offset program, which is that tied with the partnerships as well, or is that geared towards individuals, or is that geared towards, can companies do these offsets?
Sure. So it's actually both. It's direct to consumer. So for individuals that can offset their single-use plastic footprint, as well as for businesses. So the individuals can go on our site, and we have a portal online that they can go and calculate their footprint and be able to offset that, as well as the B2B side.
But I love that you are so aware of the fact that, when you can do these, when you can score on these issues and have the business the cleanups being funded without making more stuff, then that's even better, right?
Exactly. And that's something that we're trying to really just look at. I love the products and the aspect of being able to drive the awareness. I also just love the idea of diversifying and not being so reliant on having to sell physical products. Because a lot of the times, these brands want to partner with us and they're just saying, hey, we just want to fund the cleanups. This is fantastic. And we're super excited.
Do you, and that's great. Are the products made in the areas where you do the cleanups? Are they always made in different areas? And can you buy different ones from different regions of where the cleanup took place? Yes,
that is correct. So we're not only hiring local captains and crews, but we're also employing local artisans to manufacture and produce our bracelets. So we make our bracelets in Bali as well as in Guatemala. And so what we're doing is we're taking the plastic, we're processing it, turning it into a thread, and then the thread is being weaved into a bracelet in Bali as well as Guatemala. So we're able to employ not only our captains and crews, but also the local artisans.
So great. What a great story. And I remember seeing one of the videos of one of the artisans in Guatemala. It was super cool. Alex, tell me a little bit about some of the challenges that I'm sure you're facing, whether it is, we already talked a little bit about, dealing with the realities of collecting all that plastic. How do you continue to grow the brand? Are there issues with working with governments or local agencies? It sounds like you're solving this idea of making more bracelets and stuff with these partnerships and things. And what are some of the biggest, any other challenges or biggest challenges you're facing?
I'd say some of the biggest challenges that we're facing, it really depends. I think, COVID was tough for us. COVID, we had a lot of our business was focused on bracelets. So we had distribution into surf shops, gift shops, et cetera. And when COVID hit, that business went to zero, literally zero overnight. We had people calling and trying to return product and get their money back. And it was tough. And it was a dark time for the business. We were forced to lay off a considerable part of our crew and try and be able to just stabilize things to survive. And that was one of the biggest issues that we ran into, which is why we want to diversify our revenue stream so that we can be resilient in terms of, and hopefully we don't experience anything like COVID anytime soon for a very long time. But the idea and concept is to diversify. And I think that's been one of my frustrations is when it comes to e-commerce and online and wholesale and things like that, all the different ever changing platforms and increasing costs and all sorts of stuff across the board, it forces us to be the best at selling things online versus being the best at cleaning the ocean. And that's what my goal is to really stay focused on our cleanup operations and try and, hone in on our craft and on our skill and be able to expand and do more technology and pull more pounds. And I would much rather spend my time, frankly, on the ocean cleaning plastic than sitting behind a computer trying to learn the new Facebook algorithm.
Really? But it's so fun, the Facebook part.
Yes. I think also, I will say also another challenge is also management, right? I'll be very upfront with you that we grew so quickly that, it grew almost too quickly. And before you knew it, we had all sorts of executives that we hired from very large companies, and we had a big team. And I think I mentioned in the beginning, my skill set as far as managing people has not been the greatest. And I absolutely own that right now. And that's why I'm bringing in different people to help run the business and allow me to focus on the areas that I can add the most value has been one of the big things. And for me, that's tough because when COVID hit, I got almost completely removed from the cleanup operations because we got into just, everything, all hands on deck into the business, focused on, basically back to back, bell to bell all day long in meetings. And it's not good. It's not good for the health. It's not good for the focus on the expanding the cleanups. And so recently I actually just had my first son, my wife and I told everybody, I was like, hey guys, when I have my first son, I'm not doing the crazy meetings. I'm bringing in different individuals into the business, elevating some people. One of the guys actually that's been with us forever, who was hired at that job fair to help run the business. And they're doing a fantastic job. And now I'm able to be out on the water minimum 2 days a week, some days even more, and be able to travel to Guatemala, to Bali, to all these locations. And it's amazing to be able to get out in the field. So I think that's one of the challenges is trying to really focus on where can you add the most value and to outsource some of the things that you don't enjoy or you might not be that great at.
Yeah. Oh, I love how self-aware you are. And I think, just the idea of just continuously learning. I mean, none of us ever know how to run a global company like this of this size, right? You just sort of continue to work your way through it and you figure it out as you go. And it sounds like you're doing a great job. And that awareness, I think, should be applauded. It's really great.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm still learning and still got a long ways to go. I can tell you that.
Well, and welcome to fatherhood. That's going to be its own journey as well. So call me in 10 years and we'll keep up on that because I've got a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. And whew.
Yep. Absolutely. No, it's a big change, but we're loving it.
Oh, great. Yeah. And tell me, you mentioned technology, you mentioned kind of, doing better cleanups, but tell me a little bit I would imagine there's also a challenge as well. I saw one of your newest items is solar powered, all electric. I know you're focusing on that. You already talked about the climate footprint of, boats and using diesel. Is there new technology out on the water? Can you start to get into what's going on in the boat space? This is sort of an aside, but in terms of clean boats, clean fuel, et cetera, are those on the horizon for us?
Sure, sure. I think they are. I still think they have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And just the price. It's not economically feasible at this point because it's so expensive. But I believe we will get there. And that is my goal, right? To be self-sufficient, be able to run things on solar, like that would be incredible. But I think right now we're starting to see some electric outboards that are coming into the space. But what we're realizing is, A, they're very expensive. They're more geared for the luxury market or the more recreational markets. The range on them is not great. And that's a huge thing for me because when it comes to safety with our captains and crews, that's paramount. No matter what, everybody needs to get home safe to their families. There's no question whatsoever. And, there's a lot of factors and variables when it comes to cleaning the ocean. So let's say you travel to one of these farther locations or cleanup areas that we're going to, you find a ton of plastic. So the amount of plastic you're putting on the vessel and the payload is actually way higher. So you're going to be going slower back home. And who knows, if you don't have the range on those batteries, the last thing you want to do is not be able to get back. So I think once we are able to tap into a little bit more affordable, a little bit more commercially realistic types of solutions, that's something that we absolutely want to get into and test. And we're testing all these other things on a small scale with like the solar powered beach cleaning robot and some of these other items. But I think that I'm very eager for it. I'm very excited, but I think we've got a long way to go before we could change out the whole fleet to electric. I think it's going to take some time.
Yeah. Well, Alex, you're so passionate about this. I know you're passionate about the cleanup work, the entrepreneurial part of this, the management part of it, the leadership part of it. Are there any other passion projects that you appreciate? What do you love? Or is it just being out on the water? Are you doing what you love?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what I do is like I said, a dream job for me. I went to FAU as ocean engineer for the first couple of years before I switched to business, but building, tinkering. I've got a shop at my house that I love to do woodwork and welding and all sorts of stuff, just tinkering, building, designing and doing stuff. But that applies so much into 4ocean. So taking the Sea-Doo and crafting and building a new surf sled that we can fit a container on to now be able to travel further to collect more plastic. I'm doing that on Saturdays and Sundays. That's the stuff that I'm just doing on the weekends because I enjoy it. And, even kind of just improving how we can collect ghost nets and the tires diving off of Osborne Reef. And, I think if I'm not doing that, I'm just relaxing on the ocean, chilling with my family. Out on the boat, we love to go out and grill and just relax and dive and just spend time in the ocean and enjoy it. That's why we do what we do.
Well, I think you might have just answered this question, but what advice do you have for young people getting into careers who want to, be in an impact role somewhere? Sure. They want to be an entrepreneur. What advice do you give them going back? Because you guys started 2017? Is that what it was?
Yep.
Something like
2017.
So,
yep.
So you go back 5-6 years or so. What would you give, that person just coming out of college or just trying to find a new direction for their career? What do you want to tell them?
Sure. I think one of the main things that I would tell any entrepreneur starting out, there's a famous quote that I really like, and it's seek advice from those who know. I think that's so important is when we went through all the chaos and all the growth and everything, I didn't have a single mentor. I had nobody to bounce ideas off of. Hey, we're dealing with this. Hey, what do you think about that? Never had anybody as a sounding board to kind of talk through these things. And recently I've gone a little crazy with joining these different groups. I've joined a YPO, which is Young Presidents Organization. I've joined Vistage, which is a local group of CEOs and founders. I've joined a bunch of masterminds, and the value that you get bouncing ideas off of a group of collective anywhere from 5 to 15 other entrepreneurs that a lot of them in almost all these groups are significantly older than me, are seasoned veterans. And something that I'm thinking through and saying, hey guys, I don't know how to handle this with maybe an employee situation or a growth situation or capital and trying to raise money for the business. It doesn't matter what you're going through. Building a diverse network of people that can really give you some great feedback is so important. And I highly, highly recommend it because it can help you to navigate some potholes, which is the right thing.
Such good advice. And it's a good reminder as well, because we sort of get stuck in our silo and we're just going about it. I'm guilty of it as well. Building a business, you're just going to tell yourself, I got this, I can do it. And you should probably come up for air once in a while and go get some help and talk to somebody else about it.
Yes. Well, and also on that note, coming up for air, that's one thing also is take the time for yourself. If you are not able to truly decompress and be the best version of yourself, you think that you're doing everyone like, oh, I got to work so hard. I have to be the first one in the office, last one out. I got to work myself to the bone. But in reality, you're actually doing everyone a disservice, because if you are not sharp, if you are not strategic, if you cannot make calculated decisions, you're just burning yourself out. And that's why you have to be able to take the time. I used to not take any vacation. I would work like a maniac, and I would just, have to be in the office super early in the morning, go home super late at night. But that it'll wear you down. And I think you need to be able to take the time for yourself and completely unplug in order to do your best work.
Especially to do it over the long run, right? And to keep this business around for another 10, 15, 20 years.
Exactly. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about, we'll round the corner here and we'll let you, because I'm sure you're itching to get back out onto the water, Alex. So,
no, all good. I'm enjoying the conversation.
But yeah, likewise. I do wonder though, we talked a lot, we kind of joked around saying, hey, it depends and it's complicated and there's all these sort of nuances that you're dealing with. What is it that when you and I first met at that Surf Expo show, you came up to me and I feel like that was where the conversation was going. It just felt like you were really trying to find a way to let people really know how meaningful and robust this work is and was, yes. And that it's way more than just doing some simple cleanups. And the more I learned, the more I'm like, man, it's some deep work. If you could try to sum up, like, what do you want the average consumer or customer to know, or the average, maybe a journalist or somebody from the outside going, yeah, but there's a lot of yeah buts out there, right? Where somebody's like, oh, great work. Yeah, but what about this? What about that?
Sure.
What do you want people to understand if you had to break it down? What do we tell them?
I think, a lot of people thought that because we're a business that we are only in this for profit, like we're just in this to stuff our bank accounts and we're going to be out of here. And that's one of the things that is so far from the truth. I believe that this is a business that can have a lasting impact far after I'm gone. And I think that, building a legacy brand is something that's so important. And also all that work and effort that we've put into to try and doing things the right way, right? So we're a public benefit corporation, which is different than a certified B Corp. Public benefit corporation is actually the legal entity and how we're structured as an organization. The certified B Corp, we're redoing our score right now, but we're over 100 points. And I really encourage anybody that's trying to get involved in the impact space to go down that path. We employ our captains and crews around the world. We pay living wages. We cover 100% of health insurance and benefits to all our captains and crews. And now we actually just kicked off today, which I'm super proud of, here in the States as well. All of our employees here are 100% of health insurance covered. And wow. I just believe that we want to take care of our crews. And I believe that if we're going to build something that's going to have a lasting impact, then we've got to build a team that's going to be able to last through the ups and downs. And that's something that's so important, is to really just try and take care of our crews and be able to just create an environment where people enjoy what we do and believe in what we're all trying to build.
I love it. Yeah. And I love watching the videos. I mean, like, the captain seems stoked. Everybody seems so stoked to be doing the work that they're doing.
The big thing is for people to understand how hard our captains and crews work. There's a lot of different groups out there that are doing the cleanups and having a massive impact with Ocean Bound, which is any plastic collected from 50 kilometers. And there's people that are doing ocean cleanup. And I think everybody's doing an amazing job. And that's one thing that I'm just super, super stoked on, is how hard our captains and crews work and how much effort it takes to set up the international operations and really grow our cleanup infrastructure. So I think that's just something that's super important, because they're doing an amazing job. And I always try and shout them out every chance I get.
Got it. All right. Well, we'll stay tuned on that. So yeah, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that. Are you, at this point, Alex, we are inundated with plastic everywhere, and seeing that imagery. And I think that's why people are so drawn to it, because it's overwhelming. And I can't imagine, you walk onto a local beach here and it's like, yeah, there's some plastic waste. You're walking onto beaches where, like you said, football fields, it's everywhere. Yeah. Are you optimistic? Are you hopeful? Are you defeated? I'm sure there are times when it's a little mixture of both, but do you think we are doing a good job addressing this? What in the meter, right? Are we at a peak, or are we still like we're revving, or are things like starting to back off and you're just like, ooh, we're getting somewhere? Where are we at?
I think, yes, you can feel incredibly defeated. We can spend months cleaning up a coastline that was covered with plastic to get it pristine, to only have a big rain flood it and get it right back to where we were started. And that's one of the things I say is cleaning the ocean alone will not end the ocean plastic crisis. We've got to move upstream. We have to be able to implement more sustainable solutions and get rid of the waste plastics that are ending up in the environment. And I will tell you, I'm incredibly optimistic. I'm optimistic because I believe that not only the messaging, the awareness that we, as well as all the other organizations and groups involved in this space, are doing, I think that the consumer's awareness around plastic in the ocean and the impact of plastic is really starting to grow. I think over the past 10 years, it has exponentially increased to the point where brands, consumers, everybody's paying attention to that. And we as consumers have one of the biggest impacts across the board, right? Because they're voting with their dollars. Industry is producing plastic for brands. Brands are producing plastic for consumers. So if we vote with our dollar and everyone is collectively saying we want more sustainable options, it will have that positive impact, and we will reduce the amount of plastic that we're seeing in the marketplace because it's financially incentivized for these brands to do what their customers are asking. So I'm very optimistic because I think that more people are talking about it, more people are getting involved. I still think there's so much to be done. I still think we're still at the base of the mountain and we have a long way to go, and it's a very daunting task. But I can tell you we're confident as hell that we're going to keep chugging along and doing everything that we can to drive that awareness and do more that we can to remove the plastic from the ocean and stop it from getting there in the first place.
Do you think the market can fix this? Like, will the market drive this, or where does policy come into play? Policy advocacy work. Are you doing any advocacy work as well?
Not as much. It's something that we've kind of stayed focused on our cleanup operations because we tried to in the past, but we also tried getting heavily involved in education, policy, cleanup, everything. And I noticed when we spread ourselves so thin, we do a lot of things decently versus like staying honed in and really refining our craft. I would like to get involved in these different areas. And I believe that policy and legislation is going to be super important because, there are industries that they're not going to change and they need to have that little push. And, I think as long as we continue to look at material innovation and find new solutions out there, like I don't think that business owners or brands that are producing plastic go out and say, hey, we want to destroy the ocean. I think they're just looking at what's available and how they can potentially offer their good or service. And I think that it's up to everybody to try and lean into that and be able to find these creative solutions. And I think policy and legislation definitely needs to have a huge impact on that.
I agree. Well, Alex, I don't know. We covered a lot today. Is there anything else that you think is important that we want to cover? Anything else you want to dive into?
Absolutely. I think one of the things as we develop, so one of my dreams is to, when I acknowledge fully that cleaning plastic from the ocean alone will not solve the ocean plastic crisis. And I think that that's something that one of my dreams is to build a business where we're not only pulling plastic from the ocean, but we're also developing this, call it consultant advisory network and kind of business where we can actually work with brands and help to provide them with sustainable solutions. So like being almost like a marketplace where we can connect brands that want to reinvent their packaging and other packaging providers that are bringing innovative solutions and be that kind of community to connect more people. So like being able to leverage a dream of mine is not only to remove 1 billion pounds of plastic from the ocean, but also to prevent billions of pounds of plastic from ever entering the ocean by packaging redesign and finding more sustainable outlets. So that's something that I would really, really look forward to, and that we're starting to really go down that path with the business.
Alex, thank you so much. Sure. Amazing work. And thank you for that work you're doing for society, because it's, like we said, it's hard work. It's a lot of work. And I think you could be doing business a different way and probably be doing it with a lot less sweat. But man, I do urge anybody, if you guys are watching, go check out all these videos, go check out the work, go check through the website, check out that plastic offset program. If you're a brand, consider partnering with these guys, doing great work, and keep telling us more, on the website about all the technology, the cool gadgets, these cleanup machines and equipment. And I'd love to check in with you again to just kind of see when you get to 50 million, what's then what, so
we'll be celebrating on the ocean, my man. We'll have to go out for a surf. So Derek, I really appreciate you having me on the show. It was great connecting and talking about stuff, and we'll definitely keep you guys up to date on all the new tech and everything we've got going, and just really appreciate you having me.
Thanks for taking the time, because I know you're busy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thank you, buddy.
Hey, thanks for listening. This is a show produced by The Underswell and our School of Understanding. If you're interested in being a part of this movement and want to dive deeper into the art of understanding sustainability better so that you can do things better, be sure to visit us at theunderswell.com. We offer structured, easy-to-follow workshops, courses, and member resources to make sustainability a part of your career or lifestyle. Because remember, no matter what role you play a role, and we're here for you. Thanks again.